we'll take a couple of moments to get settled. Doesn't look like there are very many more folks coming in. And we have an audience by live stream this afternoon, as always, with our Kinder Colloquia. Um, this is really, really, really a pleasure and an honor, which I'll come around to in just a moment with maybe just one embarrassing story, if I may. It's really my pleasure to welcome. Well, maybe I should rethink this. This is with Professor Leslie Alexander, the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Professor of History at Rutgers University, the State University of New Jersey, no less, the flagship in my hometown, which another connection is kind of fun, which gives me special, I can't use that word enough, excitement for tonight's event because she directed my dissertation while I was at the Ohio State University. I'm still here, right?
I'm still deciding.
I have to begin with a couple of remarks. One for Professor Dave Dunkley for co-sponsoring this event on behalf of Black Studies. So thank you very much. We really appreciate that. And one for Dr. David Mitchell here for doing so on behalf of the Middleton Center for, let me see if I can get this right, Race, Citizenship, and Justice here at the University of Missouri, another co-sponsor of this afternoon's event as well. Oh, where do I begin? Let's see. Professor Alexander is the author of several books, 2 monographs, 1 edited collection, all around your interests. Let's see, Fear of a Maroon, excuse me, no, that's the title of a book I'm thinking of. Fear of a Black Republic, published last year by the University of Illinois Press. Ideas in Unexpected Places, which is about new approaches to Black intellectual history, published by Northwestern in 2022. And African or American, a book I know all too well. Your first book on Black identity and political activism in New York in the era of the early Republic. Numerous articles, book chapters on a range of topics, Black internationalism, which is what you've most recently been thinking about, at least until your next book. Free Black communities in the early United States, Black women's history, among other topics. And you have received a number of awards granted by Cornell University, Arizona State, Ohio State, the Institute for the Humanities Research, the National Council for Black Studies, and the Ford Foundation, just to name a few. Okay, so one story before we begin. When I arrived at Ohio State in 2011, I was a graduate student, a new PhD student, a deer in headlights, coming out of North Carolina, going to Columbus, Ohio, coming from an HBCU in North Carolina to perhaps the largest land grant campus in the country in terms of physical population there on campus. In other words, it was overwhelming. And for what it's worth, I've interacted with a number of you here. You may not get this version of me here that I can be overwhelmed, but my goodness. Back then I had no idea what I was doing and no way of understanding what the future might be. I'd been admitted by one professor who advised me right away, our interests aligned somewhat, but you might want to find someone else to direct that dissertation. It wasn't that bad, Carolyn, I promise. It wasn't that bad. Quite frankly, what she was trying to do was to turn my attention to you, Leslie, because of how your dynamism, because of the way that our common interests. Come on in. Sean, come on in. Oh, is that the only seat?
That's the seats.
Yeah, right there. Because of the way that our common interests in Black history might align better than perhaps mine would with the other professor. And you came to the introduction day, the graduate welcome day is what I'm looking for, and sat there and said, welcome, and introduced yourself as the den mother of the graduate students. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my memory isn't wrong. And right away, I instantly felt a bit relaxed. The prospect of doing a dissertation still really made me nervous. The prospect of not knowing what the future would be after that still made me incredibly nervous, but I knew that perhaps I might be in good hands, largely because there was this wonderful human being who just came in with a nice welcome. And so, what I'm trying to say here is that this is truly one of the most generous human beings that I've encountered in the profession, and that's the source of the excitement and honor and good cheer, frankly, that you feel coming from me this evening. It also doesn't hurt that this is the last of our colloquia
Hey,
of the
party.
semester and before Thanksgiving break next week. So my heartfelt thanks to each of you for showing up this evening and for lending an ear. And with that, I will turn over to you with questions to follow after your presentation.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. Believe it or not, this is the first time I have been to Mizzou. So it's wonderful to be here and to experience the community and to experience the campus. I really appreciate you all coming out right before holiday week is about to begin. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and be in community and on a Friday, you know, to say nothing else. But yeah, just really grateful to be here. I want to thank the two of you for your co-sponsorship. And I do want to just say a very special thank you to the staff at the Kinder Institute, especially Karen, who had to do quite a bit of reshuffling due to some weather delays during my journey here. I'm just really grateful for all the support that you all have given and for welcoming me in such a special way. Before I jump in, I do want to say a little something about my former student who's all grown up. No, I just really want to say it's unless you have been in this situation, it's hard to explain the feeling that comes with having worked with someone and then watching them fly out of the nest and go off and just become an extraordinary scholar and an extraordinary person. And it's just really special to see what has happened to your career, to see how you are thriving here, to see how much your colleagues, appreciate and value having you here, and to just see. I have to say, like, I was joking with him about this a little bit earlier today, but I really meant what I said, which is that very little of what you see Marcus today being is due to me. um, he came to me like this, you know. I was joking with him earlier today about the fact that I think he might be like the lowest maintenance graduate student I ever worked with. Hopefully, none of my other former grad students are watching right now. They're like, what? No, but really, I mean, I hear now you saying that you felt like deer in headlights when you showed up, but you came in with a sense of a self-assurance and confidence and professionalism. And it was just an extraordinary pleasure. I mean, what you may not know about Marcus is that he actually, I continue to say that he, I think, came in as one of the strongest natural writers I have ever worked with on the graduate level. And that's why I'm saying it was very low maintenance. You know, he would say, okay, I'm going to write this historiographic essay and, and then he'd submit it to me and I would be like, okay, like this is kind of perfect. I don't, I don't know what you want me to do with this. But no, throughout his entire graduate career was such an extraordinary pleasure to work with. Incredibly diligent, incredibly brilliant, incredibly professional. But every now and then he was also just but fun, to hang out and chat with in the office. You try. Yeah, I tried to. But anyway, thank you for inviting me here. It is really special to have worked with someone and then to be invited to come and be back in community with them. So thank you all for coming and thank you so much for thinking of me for this, Marcus. I want to hopefully as quickly as possible get to a point where we can just chat about the topic. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. And I'm actually going to start by having us rewind the clock a bit. I'm going to take us back to a spring evening in 1858 when this activist, Black abolitionist John Stuart Rock, who was not only an active abolitionist, but also a trained physician, delivered an emotional speech in Boston, Massachusetts, determined to combat the endless onslaught of negative anti-Black propaganda circulating in the United States at the time. Rock's address had one single purpose. He wanted to prove once and for all that Black people are a strong, courageous race, willing to fight for our freedom. And for evidence, he turned to Haiti. In Rock's view, Haiti epitomized Black people's bravery, valor, and the ultimate triumph over slavery. But his most powerful and poignant affirmation came at the conclusion of his address, when he pledged his undying commitment to Haiti and to his race, insisting that no matter how hard the enemies of Black emancipation worked to vilify Haiti, he would never abandon his people. White men may despise, ridicule, slander, and abuse us. They may seek, as they have always done, to divide us and make us feel degraded. But no man shall cause me to turn my back upon my race. With it, I will sink or swim. I begin with this particular quote because in many ways, it epitomizes the spirit of the Black activist community in the United States in the early 19th century. Although we, up until recently, we haven't talked much about it, Haiti actually figured very prominently in Black political consciousness in the United States, as activists clearly understood Haiti's symbolic and tangible significance as the only country in the world where courageous rebels had successfully conquered slavery and established a free, sovereign Black nation. Keenly aware of Haiti's omnipresent enemies, they pledged their allegiance to the embattled nation, convinced that the destiny of the entire Black race hinged on Haiti's success. After all, they believed they had a common destiny with the Haitians. Despite the ocean that separated them, they knew that their shared Blackness inextricably linked their fates, and they would rise or fall together. Over time, Haiti became their cradle of hope. As Black abolitionist Oliver Nash explained, the island of Haiti is the only country on the earth where the man of color walks in the plenitude of his rights. She may well be termed the cradle of hope to future generations. It was for this reason that enslaved and free Black people in the US grappled with pain, disappointment, and frustration whenever Haiti struggled with internal political conflicts or racist attacks from the white Western world. But they embraced Haiti as a model for the global Black freedom struggle in various ways. Some enthusiastically celebrated Haiti's liberation from colonial rule in speeches and newspaper articles. Others passionately defended Haiti's right to sovereignty and even considered migrating to the Black nation. Still, others emulated Haiti's use of violent resistance. These different strategies, vindication, advocacy, emigration, and rebellion, formed the foundation of international Black political activism in the decades that followed. But I think before we can chronicle and interrogate the nature of Black political thought regarding Haiti during this era, we have to start with a much more fundamental question. I know this is something that probably is familiar to some of you, but perhaps not all of you. So I want to start first by talking a bit about why Haiti mattered to Black activists in the United States at all. Arguably, we could say that they had their hands already full, right? Battling slavery within the boundaries of the United States. So it raises natural questions about why Haiti mattered to them and why they were willing to dedicate so much energy to the battle for Haitian sovereignty and global justice. And I think this is a really compelling question, as you'll see over the next number of minutes. Black activists did actually spend an inordinate amount of time, right, advocating for Haiti's right to sovereignty, campaigning for the United States government to extend formal diplomatic recognition to Haiti at a time when they were also trying to fight slavery within the boundaries of the US. So this question about why Haiti is really central to our conversation. The answer, of course, lies in the very founding of Haiti as a sovereign nation. As I'm sure most of you know, Haiti's story began more than 233 years ago on a stormy night beneath the pouring rain when a group of enslaved Africans gathered in the woods plotting freedom. Now, in many ways, this was actually a common theme in the 18th and 19th centuries, as enslaved Africans throughout the Americas were always dreaming, hoping, and conspiring to gain their liberty. But this particular gathering in late August 1791 proved unlike any other. For days or perhaps weeks prior, these enslaved men and women had been clandestinely meeting in the northern region of the French colony of Saint-Domingue, painstakingly organizing an insurrection, a revolutionary war against their enslavers that, according to one report, they said they intended to fight to the death. And on one fateful night, two highly respected spiritual leaders, who you see depicted here, Dadi Boukman and Cécile Fatima, assembled them at Bois Caïman and held a spiritual ceremony to launch their revolt. Calling on their gods to guide them, they sealed their pact with oaths and ritual sacrifices and urged each other to listen to the voice of liberty that speaks in the hearts of all of us. Later that night, rebels set the sugarcane fields ablaze and began seizing their freedom. Armed with machetes, they began beating drums, chanting, and marching from plantation to plantation, killing, looting, and burning everything in sight. Embracing the call for human rights that echoed across the Atlantic world, they sought freedom. Give us liberty or give us death. Within a week, French authorities believed that nearly 10,000 enslaved people had joined the revolt, and it seemed unstoppable. Spreading like a torrent, the rebellion laid waste to more than 1,000 plantations within a month, and hundreds of white colonizers lay dead. Eventually expanding to an estimated 80,000 rebels, the revolt erupted into the Haitian Revolution, the largest, bloodiest, and most successful rebellion of enslaved people in history. So the question for our purposes is, how is this received, right, outside the boundaries of Saint-Domingue? As you might expect, white people around the globe recoiled in panic and terror, and then unleashed a devastating counterattack. Unlike the Americans and the French, who were hailed as heroes when they fought revolutionary battles for their own freedom, revolutionary Africans faced a horrifying backlash from the white Western world as angry enslavers silenced the Black revolutionaries' appeals for natural rights, insisting instead that Africans were not fully human and were certainly not worthy of human rights. But the rebels persisted. Over the next decade, they fought nearly every major global power at that time, defeating each one in turn until they finally achieved victory. And this image is of the Battle of Vertières, which was like the last major battle that signaled the end of the Haitian Revolution. Now, while much has been written and said about the Haitian Revolution, much less has been said about the significance of Haiti's rise as a sovereign nation at the conclusion of the war. But this moment is central to the story that I'm telling today, because sovereignty, more than anything else, is what lies at the heart of this tale. The reason that Haiti is so important in Black political consciousness was not simply the revolt or even the revolution, but sovereignty. Because Haitian independence shaped Black political consciousness during the 19th century in ways that nothing else could. On January 1st, 1804, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, leader of the rebel army, publicly unveiled the Act of Independence and simultaneously pronounced the establishment of a free and sovereign Haiti. In a speech delivered in the northern port city of Gonaïves, Dessalines called upon his people to commit themselves to liberty at any cost and to either live independent or die. Let us swear before the whole universe, to posterity, to ourselves, the declaration urged, to renounce France forever and to die rather than to live under its dominion, to fight until our last breath for the independence of our country, and to prefer death to anything that will try to place you back in chains. Swear finally to pursue forever the traitors and enemies of your independence. In other words, give us liberty or give us death. The point for our purposes today is that Haiti's rise as a sovereign nation inspired Black activists to expand their struggle for Black liberation across the ocean and ultimately birthed Black internationalism in the United States. Because once Haiti issued its act of independence, Black activists abroad became determined to fight not only for their own freedom, but for Haiti's freedom and autonomy as well. So this naturally leads us to the question, what happened in the United States following the declaration of Haitian independence? Not surprisingly, the opening months of 1804 were fraught with political turmoil, as astonished white people around the world slowly absorbed the news about Haiti's act of independence, especially after February, when Jean-Jacques Dessalines sent a fresh round of shockwaves across the Atlantic world. All remaining white colonists must immediately leave the island, he declared. Those who refused would be killed. For Dessalines, this mandate was an act of corrective justice, a critical component of his strategy to protect Haiti against all efforts to reimpose colonial authority and perhaps even to reestablish slavery. Convinced that lingering French residents endangered the new nation and its emancipated citizens, he believed that Haiti must use all necessary means to, quote, exterminate their oppressors. Perhaps doubting his conviction, some French colonists remained, and Dessalines quickly delivered on his promise. Over the next few months, Haitian soldiers killed many who chose not to heed the warning, a massacre that became known as the Horrors of San Domingo. Now, as scholar Marlena Doubt has noted, Dessalines' campaign only resulted in the deaths of a few hundred soldiers and colonists. But word spread rapidly throughout the Atlantic world that Dessalines and the Haitian army had unleashed a murderous rampage, torturing and slaughtering thousands of innocent white people. In an effort to divert attention from centuries of brutal, deadly enslavement in Saint-Domingue, white people cast Black Haitians as the perpetrators rather than the victims of extreme racial violence, a stereotype that has persisted for centuries. At the time, however, most Black activists knew the truth. Within weeks, an anonymous Black writer known only as an injured man of color delivered a powerful rebuttal to the criticism swirling across the Atlantic world. It is the first known published commentary from a Black person in the United States following Haiti's declaration of independence. The injured man of color unflinchingly stared down his enemies and delivered an eloquent justification for Haitian independence, boldly insisting that Haitians and all Black people possess the same right to liberty as white Americans. Then in a second article, which is the one that's actually pictured here, the first one is so long, it's impossible to fit it all on one slide. So this is actually the second article that he published shortly thereafter. And in this piece, he reinforced his position, asserting that Black people had an inherent right to freedom. Oh, I'm not sure what just happened here. Did I do that? I don't know. This? Ooh, okay, there we go. Thanks, Marcus. I don't know what I did there, but the injured man came and possessed my little clicker. So in the second article, he reinforced his position, asserting that Black people had an inherent right to freedom and that Haiti had a fundamental right to sovereignty. Written as an open letter to Dessalines, the article declared that any efforts to undermine Haitian independence or deny Haitians' liberties would end in utter failure. And I want to share just a short excerpt from this. This is kind of one of my favorite sections of this particular piece. It is my unfeigned wish and confident expectation, he wrote, that you will prove to your enemies and to the world that any attempt to subvert your independence and enslave your fellow citizens will terminate in the disgrace and the ruin of your adversaries, and that a united and valiant people are an unconquerable bulwark against an empire of treachery, violence, and unrelenting ambition. Now, it's impossible to ascertain how many Black people in the United States read the injured man's messages or if they shared his sentiments. But what we do know is that hundreds of Black men in Philadelphia apparently admired the Haitians' bravery, courage, and willingness to take up arms to defend the cause of freedom. Less than 1 month after the injured man published his articles, as many as 200 Black Philadelphians took to the streets in the form of a rebellion. Spanning several nights, angry protesters roamed the streets with clubs and swords, and this is a quote, damning the whites and saying they will show them San Domingo. Several years later, enslaved people in the South embraced this militant strategy, launching the well-known German Coast Revolt, the largest slave rebellion in United States history. Armed primarily with hand tools, an estimated 500 rebels marched for 20 miles, burning plantations, sugar houses, and crops along the way. Carrying with them the spirit of the Haitian Revolution, they sought to emulate the Haitians' bravery and their victory. Some historians have even suggested that the rebels hoped to establish an independent Black republic along the Mississippi River, modeled on the image of a free and sovereign Haiti. Now, it probably comes as no surprise that the German coast uprising concluded in agonizing defeat, as local militias descended in a battle of bloody retribution. Even so, Haiti continued to remain a powerful symbol of freedom in both enslaved and free communities across the United States. In the southern United States, free and enslaved Black people again embraced the spirit of revolution as early as 1818, when self-emancipated Black abolitionist Denmark Vesey reportedly began colluding with several other rebels in South Carolina to destroy slavery and find freedom in Haiti. Throughout the recruitment and planning phase, Vesey used the Haitian Revolution as the ideal model of unity, solidarity, and courage that Black people in the United States must emulate. But Haiti's post-revolutionary image as a powerful sovereign nation also figured prominently in his plot. Vesey and his closest allies repeatedly assured their followers that Haitian leaders would send military support once the uprising commenced. And perhaps most importantly, Haiti was their ultimate destination. According to the plan, the rebels would march on Charleston, raid the arsenal to obtain weapons, seize funds from the bank, and then gain control of the harbor and sail for Haiti, where they could find freedom. Only in Haiti, they believed, would Black people find safety, protection, and liberty. Now, traitors foiled Vesey's plans before an actual revolt occurred, but clearly the Haitian Revolution and the subsequent establishment of a free and sovereign Haiti deeply inspired Vesey and his supporters, and they desperately clung to their hope for freedom until their very last breaths. Meanwhile, in free Black communities in the North, Black activists began developing plans for a large-scale immigration movement to Haiti. Beginning in 1816, Black leaders, including Paul Cuffey, whose silhouette you see in the image to the left, Prince Saunders, who you see, depicted on the right, urged Black people to migrate to Haiti, the only place that they believed people of African descent could find true freedom and equality. This movement gained significant strength after Haitian President Jean-Pierre Boyer issued a call for Pan-African solidarity in the summer of 1820. Haiti was, Boyer insisted, a land of promise, a secret asylum, where Black Americans could have their wounds healed by the balm of equality and their tears wiped away by the protecting hand of liberty. Boyer also created an inducement plan, which paid part of every migrant's travel expenses, provided fertile land, tools, schooling, and most importantly, full citizenship. Those who come, Boyer wrote, being children of Africa, shall be Haitians as soon as they put their feet upon the soil of Haiti. Now you have to imagine his words must have sounded like music to the ears of most Black Americans, especially in that period, as they struggled not only against slavery, but also to gain full citizenship for the emancipated. In less than a decade, an estimated 13,000 Black people had migrated from the United States to Haiti. But in the months that followed, Black activists in the United States experienced a rude awakening. As I'm sure many of you know, the year 1825 marked a painful turning point in Haitian history and in the movement for Black liberation in the Americas, with devastating consequences for Haitians and their supporters across the diaspora. In July 1825, the King of France still stinging from the Haitian rebels' victory in the revolution, sent a squadron of ships to the Port-au-Prince harbor and pointed nearly 500 cannons at Haiti's main port. In a menacing display of what we today would call gunboat diplomacy, Charles X threatened to halt all maritime trade unless Haiti submitted to the agreement we now know simply as the indemnity. For those who are not familiar, the indemnity required the Haitian government to pay France 150 million gold francs in annual installments in order to secure Haiti's freedom and sovereignty. And for anyone who's curious, most people estimate that a contemporary conversion would be at least $20 billion. I'll just say as a side note, I often ask my undergraduates, what do you think the United States economy would look like right now if after winning the revolution against Great Britain had forced the United States to pay back the equivalent of $20 billion in annual installments, right? What might the history of this nation have looked like? In the years that followed, France reduced the official debt to 60 million francs. But to meet payments, the Haitian government borrowed heavily from French banks under impossible terms. The crushing debt load, which today is often called the double debt, right? The original debt and then the interest rates, created a devastating cycle of debt. And this is a quote from Laurent Dubois. By 1898, fully half of Haiti's government budget went to paying France and the French banks. By 1914, that proportion climbed to 80%. Equally troubling was the psychological toll that the indemnity wrought. As Haitian scholar Jean Casimir reflected, the indemnity forced Haiti to accept all the premises of colonialism, including the legitimacy of slavery itself. Okay, so in 1825, President Jean-Pierre Boyer, faced with this ominous military threat, conceded to France's unscrupulous demand for reparations. But as historian Laurent Dubois has noted, Boyer initially obscured the indemnity's avaricious terms, likely fearing reprisals from his citizens. So at first, he only announced France's formal recognition, right? France has arrived with their ships to acknowledge our independence, right? This is how he initially framed it. Naturally, that prompted celebrations throughout the Americas as abolitionists and supporters of Haitian sovereignty reveled in the supposed victory of complete independence and diplomatic recognition. Such celebrations were particularly enthusiastic in Black communities in the United States, as activists delighted in the vision of a free and fully autonomous Black republic. Baltimore's Black community, for example, apparently thrilled about the news, held two distinct celebrations honoring Haitian recognition, including a speech by Black abolitionist William Watkins Sr., who articulated the profound joy circulating in his community. Our feelings upon this occasion are unutterable, he exclaimed. The joy which swells in our bosom is incommunicable. For Watkins, Haitian recognition signaled a hopeful future for the entire Black race. Of all that has hitherto been done in favor of the descendants of Africa, he reflected, I recollect nothing so fraught with momentous importance, so pregnant with interest to millions yet unborn as the recent acknowledgement of Haitian independence. Black leaders across the North shared this hope that the white Western world would finally honor Haitian sovereignty and that Haiti could serve as a model for Black freedom across the Americas. Quite significantly, their supports persisted even after the indemnity stipulations came to light. Keenly aware of Haiti's importance in the global battle against slavery, Black activists during this era reinvigorated their efforts to gain full diplomatic recognition for the Black Republic. John Russwurm and Samuel Cornish, for example, publicly pledged their commitment to Haiti and Haitian sovereignty in the pages of their newspaper, Freedom's Journal, the first Black newspaper in the United States. And for anyone who's curious, Samuel Cornish is on your left and John Russwurm on your right. Both Russwurm and Cornish shared a deep commitment to Haiti's success. And as a result, Freedom's Journal, which was founded in 1827, 2 years after the indemnity, still regularly offered features detailing the Haitian Revolution and exalting the new republic's strengths. As the only Black nation in the Americas, Russwurm and Cornish knew that Haiti shouldered the burden of proving Black people's capacity for civilization and self-government. And so over the next 2 years, nearly every issue of Freedom's Journal contained some news or information about Haiti, expressing pride in Haitian history, enthusiasm about Haitian independence, and hope for Haiti's current and future prospects. Now, in fairness, Russwurm and Cornish did their best. But as the years and months passed, it became increasingly clear that the indemnity would cost Haiti dearly, economically and politically, which caused US Black leaders to reassess their views about Haiti's potential. As one visitor to Haiti lamented, ruin stares everybody in the face. Should this policy of the government be continued, we will have to leave the island. Haiti's descent into financial disaster deeply disappointed Black activists in the United States, particularly since Boyer's decision to pay 150 million francs to secure Haitian independence seemed to negate the armed struggle against slavery. And also because Haiti's financial troubles sounded the death knell for the Haitian immigration movement. Even so, US Black activists refused to disparage Haiti or President Boyer publicly, choosing instead to nurse their disappointment privately. Assuming a calculated strategic stance, they struck a compromise. They quietly and powerfully abandoned their hopes for immigration while simultaneously continuing to champion Haiti and its potential. I want to underscore this point because I think there's a powerful and compelling lesson in this story. If we think about it for a moment, considering their outrage over the indemnity and the dissolution of the immigration movement, Black people in the United States easily could have turned their backs on Haiti entirely. They even could have used the pages of Freedom's Journal to openly castigate Haiti and its leaders, particularly President Boyer and his Secretary General, for their roles in destroying the vision of Haitian sovereignty and for terminating the immigration project. But they didn't. While they admitted the immigration movement's shortcomings, they carefully withheld open criticism of Haiti or its destiny. They also avoided any disparaging comments about the Haitian leadership or the potential for Black self-governance. In fact, a small but steady trickle of migrants even continued to cast their lot with the Haitians over the next few decades. While white Americans lambasted the Haitians, the Haitian government, and even individual leaders for creating a disastrous situation that caused ruin to stare everybody in the face, US Black activists chose a different, much more strategic approach. They clearly withdrew their endorsements for Haitian immigration, but they publicly continued to defend Haiti. And I'll just give you one quick example. Throughout 1828, John Russwurm and a few other Black supporters utterly refused to abandon hope about Haiti's potential. In July, Russwurm published an angry editorial denouncing Haiti's enemies and the US government's refusal to acknowledge Haitian sovereignty. Haiti, he wrote, whether acknowledged or not by the United States, is a sovereign and independent state, even in the sight of God, and should be treated equal to any other nation. And within months, Black abolitionist Oliver Nash, whose comments opened this talk, honored Haiti as the cradle of hope for Black activists across the diaspora. Now, with the power of hindsight, some might argue that Russwurm and other Black activists were naive, dishonest, or perhaps even foolish. But I'd like to challenge us to consider that they were perhaps simply unwilling to relinquish their vision for Haiti's glorious destiny or their hope for Black liberation across the diaspora. Convinced that the fate of the Black race hinged on Haiti's success, they persisted in their belief that one day the Black Republic would make all their dreams come true. So this brings us to the complex decade of the 1830s. Amid the indemnity's disastrous aftermath, US Black leaders faced a significant dilemma. What was their relationship to Haiti going to be? Would their interest in Haitian affairs die alongside the immigration movement, or would their passion for Haiti remain alive in another form? The truth is, in the early 1830s, no one knew. Once the immigration movement temporarily evaporated, only a few brief flickers of enthusiasm for Haiti remained. But the flickers were apparently enough to keep the fire alive. In 1831, Boston abolitionist Maria Stewart wrote an article in the Liberator newspaper honoring the Haitian struggle for freedom. Now, in many ways, Maria Stewart was a lone wolf. Remarkable conservatism persisted even in the abolitionist movement during this era, and as an outspoken woman, Stewart routinely suffered persecution for speaking on political matters, especially since she delivered fiery speeches calling on her people to rise up and fight for their freedom. And in this case, she was one of the few remaining free Black activists willing to champion Haiti's cause. For Maria Stewart, the United States' refusal to extend formal diplomatic recognition to Haiti felt particularly galling. So in October 1831, in a furious tirade, she lambasted those racists who denied Haiti's sovereignty and even predicted that Haiti's enemies would suffer the wrath of God. "O ye great men of America," she wrote, ye rich and powerful ones, you have acknowledged all the nations of the earth except Haiti. You may kill, tyrannize, and oppress as much as you choose until our cry shall come up before the throne of God. For I am firmly persuaded that he will not suffer you to quell the proud, fearless, and undaunted spirits of the Africans forever. For in his own time, he is able to plead our cause against you and to pour out upon you the 10 plagues of Egypt. I told you Maria Stewart was fired. I warned you. Less than a year later, powerful men threatened by Stewart's presence drove her out of the abolitionist movement, and she retired from the public eye. Following Maria Stewart's exit, a disturbing silence settled over the Black leadership regarding Haiti. For about 5 years, between 1832 and 1837, there is no indication that Black activists spoke publicly about Haiti or argued in favor of recognizing its independence. Certainly, there was no mention of Haitian immigration. Instead, as Black leaders struggled to forge a new relationship with Haiti, they elected to say nothing at all. But in the latter part of the decade, Northern Black activists finally found their footing again. Navigating through troubled political waters, they eventually charted an entirely new course. Unwilling to relinquish their hope for Haiti's success as a sovereign Black nation, they commenced an unwavering campaign for U.S. acknowledgement of Haitian sovereignty. Insistent on obtaining full diplomatic recognition, Black activists such as Samuel Cornish demanded that the U.S. government concede the reality of Haitian sovereignty once and for all. In so doing, they made a powerful transition in their strategy. No longer did their internationalist thought focus only on advocacy and immigration. Instead, they began to explore activism in foreign policy, pressuring the US government to hear their voices and change its conduct towards Haiti. Now, this new campaign began in the spring of 1837, when Cornish printed a series of articles in support of Haiti and Haitian independence in the Colored American newspaper. As with previous Black newspapers, Haiti was featured prominently in the Colored American's pages, receiving more attention than any other Caribbean nation. In May 1837, Cornish angrily criticized the US government for denying Haiti formal diplomatic recognition, especially since Haiti had been independent for more than 30 years. As he pointed out, Haitians had created a democratic republic based on many of the same principles that the United States had embraced in the founding of its own country. And yet the US stubbornly persisted with its non-recognition policy. The following year, he issued another blistering critique of the United States government. Keenly aware that slaveholders dictated the US's decision to deny diplomatic recognition to Haiti, Cornish unleashed his frustration, angrily denouncing the power that racism and slavery wielded over US foreign policy. There is no apology to justify or even extenuate our meanness and guilt in refusing the recognition of Haiti, he railed. Are the American people so weak and wicked as to imagine that they can counteract the economy of God and trample on colored men forever and everywhere? outraged that slavery's reach extended across the ocean to condemn Haiti, the only sovereign Black republic in the Americas, Cornish resolved to bring the US to its knees and extract justice. Building on his rallying cry, Black activists unleashed a campaign between 1837 and 1844 to force the United States Congress to extend formal diplomatic recognition and acknowledge Haitian sovereignty. Rallying their white abolitionist friends, they commenced a powerful petitioning campaign. By 1840, hundreds of petitions containing over 30,000 signatures endorsing Haitian recognition arrived in Washington, D.C., seeking an audience in Congress. And I just want to give you quickly an example of a few of them. What you'll notice, of course, that's interesting strategically is that in order to subvert the gag rules, right, that were dominating Congress at the time that did not allow issues of slavery to be introduced on the congressional floor, they were just very basic, right, in their language. The petitions just simply said, we are petitioning you, right, your honorable bodies, to recognize forthwith the independence of the Haitian government, right? There's no mention of race, no mention of slavery, right? We're just petitioning that you recognize the Haitian government. I just want to show you this one quickly because this is like one of my favorite ones. When I pulled this out of the National Archives and I was holding it in my hand, I was like, wait, what? This is a petition that was circulated at one of the meetings in Boston. And for those of you who are, familiar with sort of abolitionist leaders, you'll see close to the top, there's William Cooper Nell, who was one of the leading Black abolitionists at the time, who apparently was sitting next to William Lloyd Garrison at the meeting. And then Thomas Cole, who we must imagine must have been interesting at the time, but we have no idea who he is now, was sitting in between William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass, right? And I did have that like dorky historian moment when I'm sitting in the archives and I'm like, Frederick Douglass touched this. Now I'm touching it, right? And the petitions were sort of fascinating like this, right? Like I'd just be going through taking pictures and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my gosh, right? There's this amazing famous person. I do want to point out that in the latter portion of the petitioning campaign, especially starting right around 1840, the bulk of the petitions were coming from women. And I think it's important to underscore that because petitioning was actually a strategy that women abolitionists, female activists on a variety of issues were using at the time, which was super fascinating because they obviously were not considered citizens at the time, right? And yet they're still exercising the power of petition. In some cases, men and women, as you'll see on your right side, sometimes there would be petitions signed by both men and women at the same time. In other cases, they would circulate petitions like this that would say the undersigned women, right, of a particular place, and then there'd be like 600 names. Sometimes my favorite was they would say the undersigned ladies, right, of a particular location. What was really, I'll just say this quickly, what was really fascinating to me too about the petitions is that they weren't like this. The petitions were not like pieces of paper. They were like these weird, like short strips that you would pull out like this. And when you pull them out of the file, they come out like a slinky, like they're all attached together. And at first I'm like, how are these things? Because it's like these little pieces of paper that are all attached together. And then I realized these little scraps of paper that I'm pulling out like slinkies with like hundreds of names on them were hand stitched together with thread. And then that's making me think, okay, right? This is again like one of those like nerdy historian archival moments where you're sitting there all of a sudden realizing not only did they circulate and find these things, but then I just had this picture in my head, right, of a woman like in a rocking chair with her little bonnet on, by candlelight, right, at night after she's had to cook and clean and put the children to bed and do, gather up all these scraps of paper. She's now there stitching them, right, together by hand. And now I'm holding them, right, in the archives with these like stitches of thread holding them together. It was really quite fascinating. So for our purposes today, Much to the Southern slaveholders' chagrin, many of these petitions did actually reach the congressional floor, demanding consideration. And soon a nasty, ugly debate gripped Congress as abolitionists tried to force Haiti onto the national political agenda. I will say it's actually quite a fascinating story, and it's kind of amazing to see like the intensity of the debate and like the specificity of the debate that was happening on the congressional floor about race, about amalgamation, about slavery, about sexual violence under slavery. I mean, all of this is happening on the congressional floor. So for those of you who want to read the dirty details, check out chapter 4. What I will say for now is that despite the abolitionist efforts, the Southern slaveholding power in Congress denied the petitions at every turn, either sending them to committees that were chaired by slaveholders, where naturally the petitions died, or refusing to hear the petitions at all. In the end, what began as a powerful movement for freedom became a predictable and pathetic farce. A petition would be presented on the floor, a Southern congressman would object, and the petition would immediately be sent to committee, never to be heard from again. As the recognition campaign succumbed to failure in the United States, Haitian President Jean-Pierre Boyer's presidency in Haiti also went into rapid decline. Following Boyer's removal, multiple presidents served in rapid succession, casting doubt across the Atlantic world about whether Haiti would be strong enough to survive. In the midst of the turmoil, several Haitian leaders drafted an open letter, pleading with their U.S. abolitionist friends to demonstrate their solidarity with Haiti. The recent upheavals were, as they put it, common to all nations just emerging from infancy, and should not alarm the friends of our cause. After all, in the years since the revolution, Haiti had made important political and economic advancements. And as everyone knew, too many of the negative reports about Haiti were false. The enemies of our republic, the letter concluded, take pleasure in injuring us in the eyes of the civilized world and in filling their journals with atrocious and infamous falsehoods. But the Haitians are united and will so remain. Perhaps inspired by this appeal, a new generation of Black activists entered the political fray, criticizing U.S. policy towards Haiti. Among these leaders was a young Frederick Douglass. And this is whenever I talk about Frederick Douglass and Haiti, at least in the earlier part of the 19th century, I like to use this picture because I call this one Grumpy Douglass. This is when he's, in his fiery, salty era. So among these leaders was a young Frederick Douglass, who, along with Black abolitionist Martin Delany, established the North Star newspaper, which became a crucial outlet for their views on Haitian sovereignty. Frustrated that enslavers continued to dominate American politics and dictate foreign policy, Douglass and Delany resolved to celebrate Haiti and defend Black people's capacity for self-governance. But their commitment was put to the test under Haiti's new leader. On March 1st, 1847, the Haitian Senate elected Faustin Soulouque, a general in the Haitian military, as the new president. Now, historians have overwhelmingly depicted Soulouque as an ignorant, barbaric political puppet. But as historian Chelsea Stieber has noted, such characterizations are neither accurate nor fair. And US Black activists at the time knew it. Immediately after Soulouque's rise to power, media outlets across the Western world cast him as a madman and insisted that only foreign influence could restore order to Haiti. But true to form, Black activists in the United States tirelessly defended Haiti. Frederick Douglass and his allies instantly rallied to Soulouque's defense and castigated the growing movement to discredit the Black Republic. US newspapers had been constantly misled regarding Haiti, Douglass argued, and he accused the media of disseminating foul slanders and devouring every lie about Haiti and about Black people more generally. As Douglass angrily concluded, the American impulse to demonize Haiti was deep, powerful, and profound, and it resulted in a disgusting feast of lies. Oh, it is irresistible, Douglass wrote, for people to luxuriate and grow fat on garbage. But several months later, Faustin Soulouque's regime took a radical turn, creating a new challenge for Douglass and his allies. Abandoning Haiti's legacy as a free democratic republic, Soulouque wrapped himself in an emperor's cloak, and in the blink of an eye, transformed Haiti from a republic to a monarchy and an empire. Most US newspapers, of course, depicted Suluk's conversion to Emperor Faustin I as a ridiculous and embarrassing farce. But Black activists in the United States rallied behind his new role. Frederick Douglass felt particularly emboldened and gloated over Suluk's rise to the status of emperor. Suluk's enemies had apparently assumed he was nothing more than a puppet or a tool, Douglass noted, but they were gravely mistaken. Emperor Faustin I, he gleefully asserted, was a master, not a servant. And in perhaps his most clever maneuver, Douglass insisted that if anyone was to blame for Haiti's turn towards monarchy and empire, it was the United States. In Douglass's view, Faustin only turned to despotism because the US refused to acknowledge Haitian independence. What has our government done in the case of Haiti, he angrily wrote. It has slighted, with the most provoking contempt, any act looking to welcome the Black Republic into the sisterhood of nations. In response, Douglass maintained Haiti had no choice but to abandon democracy and embrace imperialism. Faced with racism and exclusion, Haitians had lost hope. At length, Douglass lamented that republic, disgusted with the very name of republicanism, abandoned all show of it and put on the robes of imperialism, finding, as she has found, far more justice and honor among European despots than she has been able to find among American Democrats. As the story that opened this talk indicated, Douglass was not alone. Activists, including John Stuart Rock, joined the fight to defend Haiti, insisting that despite any efforts to despise, ridicule, slander, and abuse Haiti, and in spite of the mission to divide us and make us feel degraded, they would never abandon their race. With Haiti, they vowed to sink or swim. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, what about enslaved Black communities? Right? Clearly, free Black activists in the North supported Haiti, but what about enslaved communities? We know that Haiti inspired rebellions, but what else? And I would not be mad at you for wondering that, especially since it's a question that plagued me throughout my research. And at first, the historical record remained, as it does in many cases, right? I think we've all experienced this, remained stubbornly silent. And then I found a song, an evocative and beguiling tune that floated along the United States eastern seaboard for decades, infectiously inspiring enslaved and free Black people alike. As the song drifted through various communities, the lyrics embodied the true spirit of African improvisation, dynamically shifting and morphing to fit the singer's moods and inner longings. Even so, a common theme remained. Let us leave this land for Haiti, the song commenced. There will be received as grand as Lafayette. Okay, I know that's a terrible rhyme, but you know, it is what it is. Directly referencing the Marquis de Lafayette, a Frenchman hailed in the United States as a hero of both the American and French revolutions, the song imagined the coming of a brighter day, a time when Black people could escape the land of slavery, make a beautiful new home in Haiti, and be celebrated as heroes. The lyrics romantically envisioned Haiti as a Black utopia, a land of milk and honey, where Black people could not only find freedom, but also enjoy decadent luxury, free of the menial, demeaning tasks that defined their lives as slaves. I have actually now at this point uncovered 5 different versions of this song. I write about them pretty extensively in chapter 5. One of them has like 10 stanzas. And I keep feeling like there's more out there. Like I keep Googling, I keep looking, I keep searching. I have the feeling that there's more versions of the song. And I'll just say quickly, because I want to be able to get to discussion as quickly as possible. What is really fascinating is that this song circulates through all these enslaved and free Black communities for decades. And then it gets taken up by performers who do blackface minstrelsy. And they spoof the song and make fun of it. They sort of bastardize it over time, and they turn it into, and then eventually it gets taken up by folk singers, and they turn it into a completely different song. But I'm really fascinated by sort of the history of the song, and am hoping one day to be able to find more. As the song traveled along through time and space, each Black community articulated their own specific resentments. But the core message remained the same. Haiti offered a potential paradise, an escape from the drudgery of oppression in the US, and the possibility of true freedom. As late as 1859, which is the last version of the song I've been able to find, enslaved people in the Georgia Sea Islands lifted their voices in song, pouring out all their deepest desires for Haiti and for themselves. For them, Haiti remained a symbol of freedom and hope up to the very eve of the Civil War. Now, it's important to note that Haiti remained so important in Black political consciousness that another wave of immigration emerged in the early 1850s, and it lasted well beyond the outbreak of the Civil War. It's a topic that I explore in Chapter 7, and I'm happy to take questions about that at the end because it's a fascinating story and it was totally unexpected when I began researching the project. But in the interest of time, I want to turn to the final phase of this story, an era that I think of as the final battle for Haitian recognition. Now, as some of you may know, Emperor Faustin I's reign came to a dramatic end when Fabre Geffrard led a bloodless coup in 1859, seizing control of the government and effectively restoring the republic. Almost immediately thereafter, the United States government found itself under increasing pressure to reconsider their outdated and absurd non-recognition policy, even from their own commercial agents. As in years past, the Haitian recognition question initially went largely ignored, but the political climate slowly began to shift 2 years later, shortly after the US Civil War began. In September 1861, the US's new commercial agent in Port-au-Prince, Seth Webb, wrote to the recently appointed Secretary of State, complaining about his discomfort with his position in Haiti. The US government's refusal to acknowledge Haiti, Webb grumbled, placed him in a difficult and embarrassing situation. Every other great power of the world except our own is thus represented, he wrote, which placed the US's financial interests in jeopardy. Sternly rebuking the US government's policy, Webb argued that non-recognition was altogether disastrous to the interests of our commerce and almost destroys the political influence of our government and its commercial agents. Now, on the surface, especially if we were, feeling generous, it might seem that Webb was an advocate for Haiti and its right to global acknowledgement. But the conclusion of his letter offered a chilling illustration of his true motives. Formal recognition, Webb insisted, would enable the US to exploit Haiti's natural and human resources and hold Haiti, as he put it, in the hollow of our hand. A few months later, Webb wrote again, explaining his plans in more detail and describing Haiti's potential as a cotton growing nation, hoping to compete with I know you can't make this up, right? You keep reading it, it's like, we cannot make this up. Hoping to compete with the Confederacy, cotton cultivation seemed particularly appealing in late 1861, and Haiti appeared to offer a compelling opportunity. Ultimately, Webb imagined Haitian cotton could fulfill all of England's demand and perhaps even displace cotton from the US South. Although US commercial agents had made similar appeals for more than 30 years and been utterly dismissed, the Civil War era ushered in a new political opportunity. Just days before Seth Webb wrote his final appeal, President Abraham Lincoln delivered an address to the Union, calling upon the Congress to consider formal recognition for both Haiti and the West African country of Liberia. Adopting Webb's reasoning, Lincoln argued that important commercial advantages might be secured by favorable treaties with the Black republics. But apparently unwilling to make a unilateral decision on his own, Lincoln punted the issue to Congress, stating that he could not bring himself to establish a new policy toward the two Black nations without congressional approval. 4 months later, on April 22nd, 1862, the congressional debate over Haitian recognition began, when Senator Charles Sumner appeared on the Senate floor to introduce Senate Bill number 184, a bill to recognize both Haiti and Liberia. A stalwart anti-slavery activist, Charles Sumner had previously advocated for Haitian recognition. But as the chair of the Committee on Foreign Relations, he faced an enormous challenge. he had to convince his colleagues, including representatives from the slave-holding states that had remained loyal to the Union, to endorse the bill. Perhaps hoping to avoid a deluge of opposition, Senator Sumner adopted a rather clever strategy. As a known abolitionist, which had already drawn his colleagues' rage, and this, of course, is an image from a scene right on the congressional floor in 1856, where Charles Sumner had been speaking about in favor of the abolition of slavery, and Preston Brooks nearly beat him to death on the floor of Congress. So, since he had already drawn his colleagues' rage, Sumner elected not to argue for Haitian and Liberian recognition using anti-slavery arguments. Instead, he framed his case strictly on foreign policy and U.S. economic interests. The U.S. economy and its international reputation had been damaged as a result of their non-recognition policy, Sumner insisted, and formal recognition could change that. During this period, when agriculture and budding industries formed the basis of world trade and determined a country's financial solvency, Sumner astutely noted that Haiti seemed to possess an endless supply of natural resources, including mahogany, logwood, coffee, cocoa, sugar, indigo, cotton, gold, silver, platinum, and iron, all of which could substantially enrich U.S. merchants. Now, while this method may have been strategically effective, Sumner's decision was ultimately disastrous for Haiti and the Black freedom struggle, because his choice to justify Haitian recognition on financial grounds allowed U.S. politicians to ignore the deeper issues of slavery, race, and social justice, and instead focus their energies on the plot to exploit Haiti's economic potential. Eventually, the bill passed both the Senate and the House, but not without bitter, nasty, racist debates over racial equality, a conflict that I unfortunately don't have time to recount today. But the point is that although the United States had finally recognized Liberia and Haiti, no one could ignore the deliberations' seedy underbelly. The foul stench of racism that had infected every aspect of the debate still permeated the nation's consciousness, and no one could ignore the naked economic opportunism that defined the bill's eventual success, especially not Black activists. After decades of activism in favor of Haitian recognition, US Black leaders met their apparent victory with eerie silence. When Senate Bill number 184 finally became law, it was met with little fanfare in the Black community, receiving little more than a brief note in the two leading Black newspapers. Most likely, Black people secretly believed what Grumpy Douglas had written during the previous year, that the US government's policies towards Haiti were driven solely by their economic interests, not by a moral compulsion to honor the world's two Black republics. As Douglas explained, white people always view Black people with dollars in their eyes. Therefore, when they cast their eyes on Haiti, they did not see a magnificent, shining Black republic. They only saw 100 millions of dollars invested in the bodies and souls of the Negro race, a mountain of gold, and a perpetual temptation to do injustice to the colored race. Therefore, even after Haitian recognition, many found it impossible to trust the government's motives. In the final analysis, the bill's approval in Congress clearly did not reflect a moral victory or a triumph over slavery. The North's economic interests simply prevailed over the South's. For when white Northerners thought of Haiti, visions of cotton fields danced in their heads. Perhaps for this reason, Black activists in the US did not truly celebrate Haitian recognition until much later. It was not until May 1863 that esteemed abolitionist Robert Purvis delivered a rousing speech celebrating Haitian recognition. "The good time which has so long been coming is at hand," he exclaimed. "I feel it. I see it in the air. I read it in the sign of the times. I see it in the acknowledgement of the Black republics of Haiti and Liberia." Thoroughly convinced that a new day had dawned and the day of Jubilee was imminent, Purvis could not be dissuaded. "I cannot be mistaken," he claimed. "My instincts are unerring." I know. But a few astute observers remained deeply skeptical. Even Robert Purvis himself, in the same speech, had to admit that there was a clandestine chorus of voices that often went unacknowledged. People in the Black community who whispered behind closed doors, nervously speculating, "It is too soon to begin to rejoice. Don't halloo till you are out of the woods. Don't be too sure of the future. Wait and see." Even after Haitian recognition, then, a few brave Black activists refused to stop and celebrate, for they knew another battle waited just around the corner. And they were right. As the next generation soon discovered, it had in fact been too soon to rejoice, because Haiti and its Black supporters were definitely not out of the woods. Instead, they were trapped in the woods, surrounded by foxes and wolves that lurked just out of view. So I'll stop there and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful talk. In our tradition, our colloquium tradition, we will begin with a question or two from the students, and then we will take it from there. Please, as you use the microphone, hold it close and identify yourself for our audience online.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Denise Brown.
Yeah,
I have two questions.
okay.
So, why has Haiti's narrative shifted from being the cradle of hope in the 19th century to a less favorable perception today,
Yeah.
even before the disparaging rhetoric from the U.S. political elite?
Yeah.
Do you think that this shift reflects a buildup of negative framing from the 1930s? And then the second question is about the debt burden imposed by France.
Yeah.
So the debt burden imposed by France was undeniably devastating. It crippled Haiti's economy.
Yes.
However, given Haiti's current political instability and overall weak institutions, do you think the government is in a position to effectively manage potential reparations? Those are my two questions.
Good. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's actually interesting because obviously the book that I ended up producing, I called Fear of a Black Republic, but for a long time I considered calling it The Cradle of Hope, because in a way what this book does is kind of tell two stories at the same time. And what I talked about today was really overwhelmingly the story that I had set out to tell. But as I was writing and researching, I realized that I also had to tell the Fear of a Black Republic side of the story, right? I had to also recount, right? Not just what's happening internally in Haiti, although that's obviously an important part of the story, but also what US foreign policy towards Haiti looked like over the course of that same era and of course beyond. And yeah, what you see, right, over the course of the latter part of the 19th century and certainly through the 20th century is a process whereby Haiti went from being the cradle of hope to what is like the chant that we hear on the news all the time, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? That's all we ever really hear about Haiti. And what, of course, I always try to remind people is that a country doesn't become the poorest country in its hemisphere by accident, right? Like that isn't about the pathology of a people, right? That's not an accident of history. That happens by design. Right? And so, yeah, I think what happens is that, and I actually just gave a talk about this recently, that what happens over the course of the latter part of the 19th century and into the 20th century is a public propaganda campaign to frame Haiti as a failed state, right? And you can actually see in a way like how initially Black activists in the United States kind of try to fight back against that, right? Especially during the US military occupation, right? But following that, you almost feel like you can see the point at which Black people in the US started to drink the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? And over time, everybody accepts this idea of Haiti as a failed nation. And I think that is a purposeful, intentional process, right? And it's one that somehow successfully largely wrote the story of the indemnity out of the picture, right? So that it's like somehow we go from the Pearl of the Antilles, right? Hands down the wealthiest colony in the Americas in the 18th century to the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And it's framed as if that is entirely the fault of the Haitian people, right? And so then it's like, yeah, well, it's a pathological problem, and I think it's voodoo, and you know what I mean? It's all these things, right? When the reality is, no, that's about the indemnity, right? And it's about the ways in which the white Western world has tried to ensure that Haiti does not win, right? That Haiti is not allowed to thrive. And then to frame it as if, well, that's a failed nation, right? As if a nation just fails on accident, right? And so, yeah, I think that has been purposeful, right? Both in terms of the economic and political strategies that have been used against Haiti, but also the ways in which Haiti's story has been told and retold and recast, right? To write out the process by which Haiti went into decline, and only to say, here's the story of a failed nation, right? So I think that's essentially how that happens. Remind me, I'm sorry, I got carried away with that. Remind me the second part.
Institutions and the potential.
Yeah, and one of the things that I say at the end of the book, and I'm not Haitian, so like I'm always like hesitant to speak for the Haitian people, and I would never presume to do that. But like I'll give my opinion as just like, a regular US Negro, in terms of what I think. I really think, and I say this at the end of the epilogue, that the white Western world has to decide that they're going to let Haiti live. You know what I mean? For the past 233 years, right, the strategy has been about conspiring to make sure that Haiti became a failed nation, and to strategize in terms of how do we conspire to extract. I mean, if you read, you guys would be stunned if you read the conversation that's happening on the congressional floor. I mean, it's like they're literally like, so here's how we're going to steal this country's resources. I mean, it's literally like that blatant, right? We're going to hold this country in the hollow of our hand. So I think that has been the history, right, of how the rest of the world has treated Haiti, right? As a place that needs to fail on its own, right? That we need to conspire to ensure its failure, and that we need to conspire to extract its resources so that it can't, ever get out from under the thumb of the original indemnity. And I think at some point, if Haiti is going to become the cradle of hope again, right? If it's ever going to reach its potential, the white Western world has to decide they're going to let Haiti live. You know what I mean? That they're going to let the people govern themselves, that they're not going to continue to select Haiti's, install puppet governments, and then when the governments don't do what they want, overthrow those and install a different puppet government. I mean, that's what the history of U.S. policy towards Haiti has been throughout the bulk of the 20th century. And at some point, right, I think Haiti, without question, has the potential, right, to reach its capacity. It's hard to imagine a nation on the earth that has undergone the persecution that it has gone, that it has survived, and that the people are still on the ground fighting. So I believe in its potential, but at some point, the rest of the global community is going to have to decide that, like any other sovereign nation, they have the right to govern themselves, right, and to be self-determining. And as of up to this moment, the United States government has not been willing to do that.
Hi, my name
Hi.
is Sarah. Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
Sarah.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed reading your work in Dr. Nagius's class.
Okay.
And something that we learned about too.
Sorry he made you do that. That's what happens. I teach him, and then he's like, well, you got to read her book.
No, we loved it. I was just wondering, like, your take on this. We were learning about how white people in Western societies kind of used Western Christianity and
Yeah.
to like quote unquote justify slavery.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned voodoo and like accusations of like Satanism
Yeah.
from Western societies
Mhm.
in sort of justifying all of this. Do you think that that has a big role in a fear of a Black Republic from Western societies? And how would it look like, do you think, if Western Christianity didn't have such a big role in all of this?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. The truth is, I think religion and Christianity is used as a justification for what it's really about, which is economic exploitation. That's my opinion. But, you know, I had the unfortunate experience of reading like, you know, I think like 100 and something microfilm reels that have all the years of the US trade relationship with Haiti over the course of the 19th century. And it's actually just staggering. I mean, I'm not an economic historian, but it is staggering to just look at the deforestation and the theft of resources that they are engaging in throughout the course of the 19th century during a time that they're actually refusing to acknowledge that Haiti exists as a nation, but are still stripping it of all of its natural resources. I mean, it's actually that relationship is actually kind of staggering, right? So yeah, I think the strategy is to, as usually happens, right, when there's an exploitative relationship, let's other those people, right, so that we can justify and rationalize colonizing, enslaving, stealing, right, whatever it is. And one of the ways they do that is to be like, they're heathens, you know, they're Satan worshipers, they're heathens, they're not Christians, they worship the devil, you know. We even heard it as recently as the earthquake, right? Pat Robertson, those people made a pact with the devil, you know. So yeah, like that is the strategy that's used to justify, right? Whatever you want to justify relative to that nation. So I think that plays an important role in terms of being like, those people aren't like us, right? And therefore we can justify doing whatever we choose to do to them. But I think really the US relationship with Haiti is about economic exploitation. Like that long list of resources that I read to you is from the US congressional record. And I actually cut out a bunch of things because I don't have enough oxygen in my lungs to read a longer list, right? But like they're very clear that Haiti is a place that they think literally has endless natural resources, and their plan is to extract them, right, to the benefit of US merchants. So I think religion is part of the story, but I think in this particular case, it's really just a strategy used to make the Haitians seem less human, right, than the Americans, and therefore we can do whatever we want to them.
I just want to do a little bit of managing the queue here. We have 3 questions in each
Okay.
row. Then Professor Zug,
Okay.
then Maeve, then Professor Smale, then Lauren. And
Okay.
perhaps Lauren might be, or Greg might get the last question.
It's okay. I'll be here all night.
Hi, my
Hi.
name is William. I'm also in Professor Nevius's class.
Hi, William.
I wanted to ask a question about the genesis of Black internationalism in the 20th century,
Yeah.
and the more modern relationship that the United States has with Haiti.
Yeah.
In the epilogue of your book, you criticized administrations since the 90s.
Yeah.
And you know, we'd expect like the Bush administration to have an exploitative relationship with Haiti. We'd expect the Trump administration to have an exploitative relationship with Haiti. But you go into depth about the Clinton
I
administration's
know. I
relationship.
kind of went in on the Clintons.
Yes, yes. And Obama as well, and particularly Hillary Clinton's
Yeah.
tenure as Secretary of State under Obama.
Yeah.
And you talk about how their policies have effectively produced racist results.
Yeah.
And you had a quote in there. You said that black faces in high places will not save us. And you know, these like Hillary Clinton. You know,
Yep. Everybody loved that one.
yes, yes. You know, she's these people are kind of self-styled anti-racist. Like
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton famously said, like to outflank Bernie to the left, that she said, will breaking up the big banks end racism? Will it end sexism? No. Wouldn't hurt, but whatever.
Yeah, right. I
And
mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing.
yeah, yeah. And I wanted to combine this question with a like mid 20th century event that happened in the Black internationalist community,
Yeah.
or in the freedom struggle. And there are many scholars who criticize, like Gerald Horne, I'm a big fan of his,
Me too.
who criticized like the kind of excommunication of more like socialist, internationalist minded Black civil rights leaders, like Paul Robeson is a big one, Du Bois. And I wanted to, you talked about how many Black people today drink the Kool-Aid in Haiti. And I wanted to ask you about these two kinds of, like, what do you think has happened with the Black internationalist movement? What was the story in the Cold War? How is it that we have this situation today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have to say this because I mentioned this to Dr. Neves a little bit earlier today, that the epilogue turns out to be like everybody's favorite part of the book. And it is literally the only part of the book I did not want to write. I 100% did not want to write that epilogue. And actually, the original version, I still have it on my laptop somewhere. I'll send it to you so you can show it to your students. The first draft that I wrote of that epilogue started out with, "This is an epilogue I did not want to write." And I mean, it's really because I'm an 18th, 19th century historian. I don't like writing about anything that happens after the Civil War, so I just like to stay in my lane. But, I felt like this for me was something I had to write. And it was something I somewhere in me, I knew all along I had to write it. But it got to the point where I knew I had to write it when that last chapter that I talked about at the very end, that talks about how the United States Congress finally decides they're going to recognize Haiti. When I realized how and why that actually happened, which is not the way it has typically been told, right, in history books that have talked about it up until this point, I was like, oh my God, like this explains everything that happens in the 20th century. And so I can't be like 1865 came and slavery was over and the United States recognized Haiti, yay, peace out, right? Like that would have actually been like a morally irresponsible thing to do, right? Because it would not have been an honest rendering, right, of what came after. And I'm saying that because when you mentioned that I went in on the Clintons and Obama, the second draft of the epilogue that I wrote, which no longer said I did not want to write this epilogue, but still had the vibe of I don't want to write this epilogue. When it went out to the reviewers, Michael West, who some of you may know is also a historian of Black internationalism, outed himself as one of the reviewers. And he wrote to me and was like, girl, if you're going to write this epilogue, you got to go there. Like, you actually have to go there. And yeah, it meant I had to throw Obama under the bus. I had to throw the Clintons under the bus. Like, I had to go there, right? And actually tell what it was. And I think, yeah, I mean, I'm not a 20th century historian, but I'll tell you what I think in terms of what happened. I think what happened is that, the United States government and the enemies that be, right, on a global scale, writ large, did a really good job of demonizing the struggle, right? And demonizing what could have been the successful examples of the struggle, right? So Haiti becomes a failed nation. Socialists become the enemy, right? Anyone who's thinking about anything that looks or smells or sounds like social, any kind of communitarianism, anything decolonial, right? Like all of those things become the enemy, right? And I mean, I'll just say for myself, I still feel that today, right? After what's happened over the past few weeks, right? There's still that sentiment of like, it's not just that we disagree. It's like, you're actually the bad one, right? Like, And so I just think that's literally what happened, right? Is that in the case of Haiti, it became, these are people who are not capable of governing themselves, right? Because they worship Satan, you know what I mean? Because they're just pathologically problematic, right? They're not able to govern themselves. So we need foreign influence, right? To govern these folks. And I think that did throw a wrench into, this gets to your point about what's happened to Black internationalism. All of that threw a wrench, right, into the Black internationalist effort, right? Because as decolonization, for example, in Africa continues to unwind, right? And decolonialism turns into neocolonialism, right? Now we have all these problematic leaders, right? And now those people can't govern themselves, right? Like, and I think one of the problems, well, I'm going to call it a problem, but other people might not feel like it's a problem, but to me it's a problem, of the US Black liberation struggle is that a significant impulse of it has been framed around respectability politics, right? And this is actually something I wrote about in my first book. This is really a lot about what the abolitionist movement was about, is to say, we can be good citizens, we can be patriotic, we can be productive, we can be good if you will give us our freedom, right? It's about proving worthiness, right? For freedoms and for citizenship. And so respectability politics, we talk about this a lot relative to the 20th century. This is really something that's born in the 19th century, right? About this is how we gain freedom, is to show we can be good. We can be like you, right? And so as respectability politics starts to dominate the civil rights movement in the 20th century, anything that makes the race look bad has to go over there, right? So Haiti is a failed nation, that has to go over there, right? These other African nations that have these problematic neo-colonial leaders, they're over there, right? So it's about a process of distancing themselves, right, from anything that potentially makes the race look bad, I think plays a really significant role in kind of undermining what had previously been internationalist solidarity, right, or transnational solidarity.
Thank
I don't know if that answers your
No,
question.
that was an excellent question.
Okay. Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Jack,
Hi,
and
Jack.
my question is that when I've seen Haiti before, I remember when the earthquake happened. I was in elementary school when it happened. I think it
Oh my
was.
God, that makes me, okay. I'm sorry.
I get that.
I don't know if anyone felt like they needed a moment after that, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, anyway,
But
carry on.
as I was saying,
Yeah.
what shocks me about Haiti, and I remember it happening and seeing all the pictures and all
Yeah.
that. But what always has thrown me about Haiti is how like the land is so. It just looks like it's like there's deforestation. It looks like that, and you look
Yeah.
at the other side of the Dominican Republic, it's a lot more lush. And
Yeah.
I want to ask you, like, how much of the environmental factor do you think played into the struggles that Haiti has had? Not just from the fact that they had everything against them, and then a lot of problems going on within it, and all the debt. Do you think that had a why Haiti has struggled so much
Yeah.
over its history?
No, I think that's a good question. And I think it is an important one because there is no question that the fact that Haiti sits on probably like one of the world's most active fault lines, right? It was devastated by an earthquake in 1842 and into 1843. Like there's been a long-standing, right, challenge that Haiti has had simply because of its global position. But what I will say, and this is something that shocked me the first time I went to Haiti, because the only images that I had ever seen of Haiti, like contemporarily, I'd seen all the historical ones, right? But the only images I had ever seen of contemporary Haiti were images that I had seen on television, on the news. And when I went to Haiti, I was like, what? Well, I don't know if this happened to you because I know you work on Haiti too. When I went to Haiti, I was like, this is hands down, without question, no competition, the most beautiful place I have ever seen in my life. I mean, it is the mountains, the forests, the trees, the plants, like it is stunning. Now, the two biggest cities, right? Cape Haitian up in the north and Port-au-Prince on the coast, the cities are not cute. You know what I mean? In part because of the earthquakes, in part because of the poverty, right? All of the things that we would expect. Everywhere else in the country is literally the most jaw-droppingly beautiful place I've ever seen. I wish I had brought my laptop with me because I would have put some of the images up. Are you also in Dr. Nevius's class? Okay, I'll email you some pictures and you can show them.
That's good. We'll do that next one. We appreciate that.
But yeah, but I do think that it is important to, for me, I think the big picture issue again has less to do with its geographic location or the environmental conditions, and has more to do with the way the white Western world has like raped Haiti's like its land, you know what I mean, and its people. Like it has stripped the country of its natural resources. You know, I remember, like you said, right after the earthquake, everybody was talking about, you know, deforestation and there's no trees in Haiti. That's why when I went, I was like, how come there's no these trees here? Like everybody's saying there's no trees on this, you know? But it is true that Haiti has, large portions of Haiti have been deforested, but it's not because of the Haitians, right? It's because of the people who insist on coming to Haiti and taking all of the wood, all the logwood, all the mahogany, right? All the things that I listed in the congressional thing. So to me, there's no question, right, that in the same, I was raised in California, right, and you're always on the on the edge, right, waiting for an earthquake. Like geography and environment, without a doubt, play a role. But to me, the bigger issue is the way that Haiti has never really been allowed to even just do the most basic of things: create an infrastructure. Let's have some roads, right? Let's have education access for everyone. You know what I mean? The very basic things have never really been able to fully be established, because literally today they're still paying off the indemnity, right? I mean, on paper, the indemnity was paid off, right? But in order to do that, they had to borrow from US banks, and they're still paying that, right? So, yeah, to me, it's an economic question more than it is like a geographic or environmental one. Yeah, thank you.
A bit more queue management. One more question here, then Professor Zug, Professor Smale, Lauren, and okay. Greg is smart. He doesn't want to hold up the Pursuit of Happiness hour.
Right. He's like, I want snacks. I'm not mad at you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Larry. I'm not in Dr. Nevius's class.
Okay.
So,
Who are you? Okay, no. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Wish I was. I wanted to ask you about hope. And
yeah.
I wanted to add, there's been an assumption a bit in the conversation that hope fuels political action, that there's something about recovering hope that we ought to aim toward.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if we can turn that inside out a bit and ask what hope stifles. I've been very convinced by David Scott's reading of the Haitian Revolution that when James went to rewrite Black Jacobins, of course, he made it a tragedy.
Yeah.
In part because he saw him constrained by the intellectual milieu that he was kind of surrounded by.
Right.
And so I'm wondering, is the hope of both the Black and white abolitionist movement in some ways also a limit? Does it fasten them to a kind of elitist Republican institutional form, or a kind of belief in an international system that's equal but is actually always predicated on hierarchy? And so if that's the case, like what kinds of hopes do we want? What kind of hope do we want to cultivate so that our political action doesn't aim toward?
Yeah.
And we don't get trapped in the same projects of the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's actually a fantastic, really quite brilliant question. I think I know this is being live streamed, and I sent it to my mom, and now I'm really hoping she's not watching. She doesn't like it when I talk about her, and especially in this way. But you know, I was raised by hippies, and so I'm just like a person who's never gonna not have hope. You know, like I'm gonna have my days where I'm like not feeling it, you know, but the next day I'm gonna wake up and feel hopeful, you know? So I'm just like a person who's never gonna relinquish that, right? Because I do feel like hope and imagining a different future, something else that could be possible, is really what has made the Black freedom struggle be able to continue, right? Against impossible odds. So like in a theoretical way, I'm never going to give up hope. But I think you raise a really important point around what are we hoping for, right? Like, what is it that we are hoping to create? And you know, I try at various points to be critical of, for example, some of the Black migrants, right, or some of the Black activists who go to Haiti in the 19th century and kind of are looking at it through rose-colored glasses, right? Some of whom are bringing a civilizing mission, right? Some of whom, as you said, are kind of trying to install or import, right, particular ideas about how things are supposed to be. And I think, and I'd be interested actually to hear what you think about this because you work on Haiti also. I also feel like this is one of the things that has caused tension over time between the Haitian elite and the people, right? Is that they're not aligned in terms of what the vision is, right? Like we might share a common hope about wanting to be free of like US, you know, what is really kind of US colonial, you know what I mean? Oppression. But we might have very different ideas about what comes after that, what that's going to look like. And so I think that's an important point, right? Is that some of the people who, and this is actually one of the things I've always tried to do in my work is to like get into the messiness of this, right? Is that we might have a common thing that we're against, but we might not have a similar vision of what is supposed to happen on the other side, right? And so we might share a common hope about what has the capacity to be destroyed, but we don't necessarily share a common hope about what's going to replace it. And I think that is really what is at the heart, right? That's the part that we often don't talk about, but that I feel like we have to talk about, which is, yeah, like we can all, well, maybe not all, but right, many of us, right, can probably agree on what we're against, but what are we for, right? What are we trying to create? And yeah, I think this is kind of at the heart, right, of beyond sort of the US imperial tentacles, you know, in Haiti. The other problem, right, that has been a challenge for Haiti is the tension between the Haitian elite and the people, right? The Haitian elite who are trying to sort of replicate a kind of particular, you know, economic model, right? And the people who are like, I want to live. Right? I want to grow my own stuff. I want to have my own stuff. I want to, you know what I mean? Be free, right? Of whatever this thing is that you're trying to impose upon us. So I'm glad you raised that because to me, I think that's, I don't necessarily think hope is the problem. I think the problem is we spend a lot of time talking about what we're against and we don't talk enough about what we're for. And we have to have a clear vision on what it is that we want to create and what kind of a society can we imagine creating where people actually can live and breathe freely. Like, what does that look like? And how do we go about creating that? So I don't know if that addresses your question, but to me, I think that, right? And again, I'm raised by hippies, so I'm not going to like be mad at hope. You know what I mean? But I think you raised a really powerful and important point, right? About what are we actually trying to do, right? Like, we don't want Animal Farm. You know, I don't know how many of you were like forced to read that in, you know, junior high, right? But, you know, we don't want to like destroy something just so now the pigs are in charge, right? Like, we actually want to create something different, right? So we have to have more conversations about that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It was kind of striking to me that closer, kind of striking that in the 1830s, the abolitionists, you know, they're a social movement and an interest group, and they have limited capital, especially on a Jacksonian Congress,
Yeah.
which is not inclined to do
Yeah.
anything,
Yeah.
and that they would put a lot of that capital into this pro Haiti recognition
Super
campaign.
interesting.
Why exactly? It doesn't make sense that, you know, they're working hard to make meaningful gains domestically, and it, you know, meeting with minimal gains. And was there a sort of broader strategy, or was it a coordination issue, or how do you
Yeah.
sort of explicate that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. My read of it is that there's actually two things going on. And one is kind of a big picture, like ideological thing. And the other one is like a very practical, strategic thing. So I think the big picture thing comes down to something that I sort of alluded to in the talk, which is that Haitian recognition from the perspective of Black activists in the United States is about trying to force the United States government to admit, A, that there was nothing wrong with the revolution, right? B, that people of African descent have the same right to have a revolution, to fight for freedom, right? Like they see a very clear parallel, and they write about this a lot. They see a very clear parallel between the American Revolution and the Haitian Revolution. And so they're saying, you wanted this for you, right? Why can't they want that for themselves, right? Like you so much did not want it for you that you literally said, I don't want to be a slave to the British crown. Hello, you're not actually a slave. You know what I mean? But when actual slaves want their freedom, now that's a problem, right? So it's about kind of saying, it's about forcing the US government to reckon with the question of who's human and who's not human, who has natural rights and human rights and a right to liberty and who doesn't, right? So there's lots of like big picture ideological things at stake here, right? If the United States government takes the bait, right, and says, okay, we're going to recognize Haiti, right? It is saying this slave revolt, right, that became a revolution is okay, right? Black people governing themselves is okay. Black people wanting freedom is okay. These people have a right and have the capacity to govern themselves, right? Which is one of the big questions, like, do people of African descent even have the intelligence and the capacity to govern themselves, right? So all of those sort of big picture ideological things are at stake. And so for them, if they can get the United States to follow behind France and Great Britain, right, and all these other nations and say, yes, okay, right? We have been, you know, Haiti is our fourth most important trade partner. And so we're going to acknowledge they exist, right? I mean, on the face of it, it kind of sounds ridiculous, right? But for them, there are these big picture ideological things that they feel like if they can get the United States government to say yes to that, it's kind of an implicit yes to a whole lot of other things, if that makes sense. The other piece of it, and this is the part that is more like very concrete and strategic, is that at the same time they are launching the Haitian recognition campaign in Congress, as I mentioned before, obviously Congress had just passed the gag rules. And so they're saying nothing about slavery can be brought to the congressional floor. Nothing about race can be brought to the congressional floor. You can't mention abolition. You can't talk about slavery, right? All these other things. So they're like, okay, right? Because they've had this, you know, this petitioning campaign about slavery going on, right? So they're like, okay, we can't petition about slavery. We'll petition about Haiti, right? And that's why those petitions are so clever. Doesn't say anything about slavery, doesn't say anything about Haiti being a Black nation, doesn't say any of that. All it says is the United States should recognize Haiti, right? So when the petitions come to the floor of Congress, they can't be like, oh, that violates the gag rule. No, it don't. We didn't say anything about that, right? We didn't say anything about racial justice. We didn't say anything about slavery, right? We just said Haiti. Right? So from their perspective, it's actually like a very clever strategic plan, right? To sort of force Congress to talk about race and slavery without having to say race or slavery in the petition. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm mainly a
you.
historian of Hispanoamerica,
Yeah.
but as students of my classes know, I never tire of talking about Haiti and
good.
thinking about Haiti. And I wanted to thank you for your talk because recently with a graduate course,
Uh-oh.
Janet,
that
a couple of them. We read the book by Chaz Yingling, Siblings of the Soil, which is about the early 19th century relationship between Haiti and the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
But your talk made me think of something that Professor Yingling never brings up is actually between 1822 and 1844. Haiti is not a black republic. It's a multiracial republic.
Yeah.
And
It is.
like the Haitian president Boyer is actually ruling over a white landowning class in the Dominican Republic during this time period. And so
He
obviously
is.
that would be something no one in the United States would want to think about in country.
Yeah.
And obviously the white landowning class of the Dominican Republic is constantly like, how do we get out of
How
this?
do we get out? Right. Give us free.
Yeah. How do we get out of this?
Yeah.
So your talk made me think about that quite a bit. And
Yeah.
then also on the question of religion, you know, Julia Garfield, who talked
Yeah.
about like the United States refuses to recognize Haiti, but U.S. merchants right from the beginning are doing business with Haiti
100%.
right out of the door.
Right.
And I am really excited for her next work, which is the relationship between Haiti and the Vatican,
Yeah.
because the Haitian leadership is very astute in saying, hey, if there's one international body which can't ignore us,
Yeah.
it's the Vatican.
It's the Vatican.
Because if they do ignore us, we're just going to start appointing our own bishops.
Yeah.
And the Vatican's like, oh my God, they got us there.
Right.
So I just want to thank you very much. But I
Thank
think
you.
that, you know, it is interesting to think
That
about.
would have been an interesting scene for Conclave.
Yeah.
Right. If any of you have seen that.
But, you know, we do conceive of, we often think of Haiti as a black republic.
Yeah.
But really for 2 decades, they were a multiracial republic where
Yeah.
the leadership was primarily French-speaking Haitian and black,
Right.
but they were clearly respecting the land ownership and the patterns that existed in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, no, I think that is a really important point. And, you know, Jean Casimir also takes like a slightly different take on that in his book as well, kind of pointing out like, look, Haiti has never been a black nation, right? In part because of what you were talking about, but in part because, right, you have the Jean de Colère, you have like, right, some of the white colonists who remained anyway, right? Like his point was that, you know, Haiti has never had the kind of strict racial categories, right, that dominated the United States in the same way. And it kind of made me go back and forth about like, okay, am I going to keep calling this a black nation? Am I going to keep calling this a black republic in my book? Fortunately, Casimir gave me a little bit of a loophole. Because one of the things he says is, you know, Haiti internally has never been a black nation, but it was always viewed as such by foreigners, right? And so in a way, that's kind of the point, right? Of the point that I'm trying to make in the book is how are black activists in the United States viewing Haiti, and how is the white Western world viewing Haiti, right? And sort of part of the thing I'm trying to acknowledge is that throughout the book is that how black people viewed what was happening in Haiti did not always line up with what was happening on the ground, right? And so we have to be willing to just understand what it meant to them on their terms, right? In their view, acknowledging that they weren't always right, right? But we want to understand how they saw it anyway, right? And so, yeah, you're right that history, right? And what Haiti was and wasn't, right, at various points, I think is a really important part of the story, and does really help. I think there's still a lot that we need to kind of unpack and understand about the relationship between Haiti and the DR. I try to tackle it a little bit in the book, but it's obviously a super complicated issue. I'll just say quickly, the big point that I try to make in the book is that, you know, especially under Seluk's regime, Haiti goes way too far, right? In terms of trying to force the DR back into its fold, right? But at the same time, Seluk actually saw what everybody said he was crazy for thinking at the time, but he was actually, the evidence shows he was right. Like, we have the receipts. And that is that he says, look, if the Dominican Republic is allowed to remain independent, the United States is going to use it as a launch pad to invade us and gain control over it. And at the same time that he is waging endless warfare trying to prevent that, the papers of the US presidents are like, so all we need to do is have DR be independent, and then we'll use that as a launch pad. I mean, they're literally saying in their papers exactly what Seluk is saying, and everyone's like, he's a madman. But he's like, he saw it, right? So yeah, thank you for your comments. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say quickly, because you mentioned Julia Gaffield's book, very quickly, you know, one of the points that Black activists make throughout the 1830s and 40s as they're trying to force the United States to extend diplomatic recognition is to point out that over the course of the first half or more of the 19th century, Haiti ranges between being the United States' third and fifth most important trade partner. How many people in the United States know that? Yeah. Right? Third and fifth most important trade partner, to the point that after Haiti declares its independence, the United States Congress is like, oh no, we cannot have that. They try to impose an economic embargo, and Haiti's like, go ahead, we'll wait, right? And within a matter of a few years, the United States is like, okay, never mind, we do want to trade with you, right? Because the United States economy cannot survive without Haiti. Haiti is fine, right? The United States economy cannot survive without Haiti during that period. And so they have to call off their own embargo, right? So yeah, that, you know, it's a tremendously important point, and it's one nobody ever talks about, right? Relative to the economy of this country.
Thank you so much for this wonderful talk. I'm Lauren. I'm a postdoc here at the Kinder Institute. Something that I work on with my own students is the persistence of Black people's calls for reparations over time. That this isn't a 2024 thing. This is something that kind of as long as we can trace. And then also as long as we can imagine, Black people have called for in a variety of ways and a variety of forms, and also understanding how those calls change over time and with changing social circumstances. And so I'm really interested to hear you talk more about if and or how the indemnity relates to Black people's calls for reparations, both in the 19th century and onward, you know, in a sense where reparations went the other way.
Yeah.
And how does that affect the kind of Black kind of universe of thinking on this particular topic?
No, I think that's such an important question. And, you know, the truth is, every time I talk about the indemnity, I go out of my way to use the word reparations, because that's how the French saw it, right? Like, they saw that extraction as reparatory justice. Like, they felt their land and their human property had been stolen from them, right? Like, they saw the emancipated Haitians as their property, right? And they wanted to be compensated for the loss of those human beings in addition to the loss of the land. And it was very clear to them that this was a demand for reparations. You owe this to us, right? And so I think it is important to make the point, right? Kind of comparing the American Revolution and the Haitian Revolution. So you want that for yourself, right? And you're willing to fight a revolution over it, and, you know, there's tons of bloodshed, and right? Because you want that for yourself, and that feels reasonable. But when somebody else wants it for themselves, it's wackadoodle, right? And that's kind of the same thing happening, right? That the French feel totally reasonable and justified in issuing a demand for reparations. But yeah, over time, right, when other communities call for reparatory justice around things that actually happen to them, right, it's like, no, that's actually crazy, right? So I think there's a lot that has to be unpacked there, right, in terms of, because it does go to the heart in the same way that it did relative to the American Revolution. Who's human? Who has rights? Who has natural rights? Who has human rights? Who doesn't? Who's entitled to liberty? Who isn't? Right? The same question plays out over reparatory justice, right? Who has a right to a repair and who doesn't, right? And this goes back to your question too, because there's no coincidence that when the Haitian government began calling for reparations relative to the indemnity, the president just disappeared.
Yeah, Bertrand.
Right? Aristide, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, right? He, shortly after the bicentennial, right, of Haitian independence, he issues a call for reparations, and all of a sudden everyone's like, yo, where's Aristide at? Right? And then he pops up in the Central African Republic. People in this country were like, we didn't even know that was a country in this world. Like we didn't even know there was a place called the Central African Republic. And Aristide is over, what's he doing
On a US jet.
on a US jet. Right? So yeah, you know what I mean? I think your point is a really important one around what happened. And again, for me, I think this goes to the very basic heart of the same questions that the American Revolution versus the Haitian Revolution goes to. It comes down to, who do we view and understand as human and worthy of human rights, and who do we not? Right? And that's obviously not a judgment that is leveled only against the Black population, right? All kinds of marginalized communities, right, experience the same thing. But it really comes down for me to this question of, who do we view as human and who do we not? And what does that mean, or what the consequences are going to be? I will just say really quickly as a side note, the funny thing to read was the US newspapers after the indemnity goes through, because the US people are like, they what? And they, what? And how much? Right? Like, I make a point about this in the book, like even the Richmond Inquirer, right, which is certainly not
Actually democratic.
right, it's certainly not a champion of Haitian sovereignty, is like, this is the batshit craziest thing we have ever heard. You know, the French think they're getting what for who and what and how much, right? Like, they think it's nuts. And I'm sure they partly think it's nuts because they're like, I hope England doesn't catch on to this and think it's a good idea, right? Because they cover for us, right? But partly because they're like, this is actually the craziest thing we've ever heard.
All right. Well, with that, thank you so much. Let's give we will not hold you from Pursuit of Happiness Hour any longer. For those who are coming to dinner this evening, we'll just talk up here briefly about the plans.